Hello, Kiss Army. I'm Pasquale Vari, and welcome to Let Me Know a Short Kiss. Claudio's on vacation, so in this episode, I'll be joined by Michael Bernasian. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me back again. Claudio, thank you for being on vacation and having me join again for the second time in a row. So thanks, Pasquale.
Nice, nice. It's going to be fun. You know,
Mm.
we've talked about it in previous episodes. There's not much Kiss news happening lately. And I remember oftentimes we said, oh, it's an amazing time to be a Kiss fan. It's an amazing time to be a Kiss fan. Well, not right now. There's not much happening. But lately, something of interest came up. It's the recording of the Kiss song Rock and Roll Hell by Canadian music legend Bryan Adams, as well as his upcoming recording of War Machine. So let's talk about that. So,
Yep.
Michael, first of all, so what are your thoughts about other musicians covering Kiss songs? And what would be your top 5 Kiss covers?
Okay, well, I did some, when you asked me this, I had to do a bit of research. In terms of covering Kiss songs, I mean, look, anyone can cover anything nowadays. You can be sitting at home with an acoustic guitar and record yourself and put it on YouTube, and you've got a cover of Hard Luck Woman on YouTube. So anybody can do it, and I think it's a great way to show love for a band or appreciation for a band. So this has been done especially for Kiss, who were around for 50 years, for decades. So when I went back in time a little bit and looked up some of my favorite Kiss Kiss songs that were covered by other bands. I mean, one that immediately came to mind was the version of Strutter by the Donnas, which
Yeah.
appears on the Detroit Rock City soundtrack. I mean, that song got me into the Donnas, made me a fan of theirs. They were my band of the 2000s, and I wish they would regroup. Please do so. Another band who has never shown who has always shown love for Kiss is Anthrax, and they've done so over the years by covering their songs not just in concert but also in the studio. And they did a version of Watching You back in the 2000s, which was part of, I think, the expanded version of their album Stomp 442. So that's a really good one. In a little bit of a different direction, there's a cover of A World Without Heroes by Cher, which she put out in the early 90s, which I really like. And of course, their connection with Kiss is, of course, Gene and Cher used to be in a relationship together. Well, her version of this song is really great. And then I have 2 versions of Rock and Roll All Night, which I particularly like. One, which I think a lot of people know, which is the version by Poison, which they did in the late 80s. And another version, which is more recent, from a band that I only recently discovered, actually, this year, a band called the Dirty Denims from the Netherlands. 2 years ago, they put out their own studio version of Rock and Roll All Night. So, you can check that out on YouTube and, anywhere else, I suppose. So, yeah, those are definitely 5 that stick out in my mind. Definitely. What about you?
Listen, I obviously like that other bands and musicians cover Kiss, and I think
Mm.
it validates their music. But what I really like is when mainstream bands and or musicians cover the band.
Mhm.
Because, unlike bands, for example, Pantera,
Mm.
I find that mainstream bands and musicians, when they cover Kiss, it really puts them in pop culture, in the
Mhm.
light of pop culture.
Yeah.
And there's more interest in their music. People go, what? That's Kiss? I
Mm.
mean, look what's happening with I Was Made for Loving You after the Fall Guy movie and the Youngblood version of it.
Mhm. Yep.
I think the Youngblood version got what, 5 million listens on Spotify alone, and
Yep.
now that song reached over 1 billion listens on Spotify. It's just incredible. But my favorite covers also are covers that sort of like cross different genres of music. A
Mhm.
cover that doesn't necessarily sound like Kiss.
Mhm.
I like tribute bands, bands like Pantera that covers a Kiss song and gives it a harder edge. That's cool.
Yep.
But a song that sounds completely different to me is amazing. Not many people like this, but I love Rock and Roll All Night from Kiss My Ass from
Mhm.
Toto Wet Sprocket. They
Yeah.
took this
Good.
rocket anthem and turned it into a ballad. I mean, come on.
Mhm.
How cool was that?
Yeah. Definitely.
And it's hard for me to basically point out particular favorite covers, but if you check these out, I have a couple of tribute CDs. The String Quartet tribute to Kiss.
Mhm.
Kiss songs in a string quartet.
Mm.
So different, so unlike Kiss. And it's like you could change Kiss songs like that. Yeah, you can. Amazing. Another one, Hey See Dixie, Kiss My Grass,
Mm.
bluegrass versions of Kiss songs. Really cool. And another, my ultimate favorite tribute album, When They Kiss Me, A Dance Orgasm. Just the name itself says it all. Kiss songs dancified. So amazing. And there's no pauses in between the songs. It's like 45 straight minutes of Kiss dance songs.
When you're dancing, you don't want to stop dancing. So there you go.
Exactly, exactly. And there's also a cool swing version of Detroit Rock City that I found on Spotify
Mm.
by Alien Fashion Show. Absolutely love it. Love it. I'm not a big swing fan, obviously, but that song, Detroit Rock City, amazing. I've heard so many different versions of Detroit Rock City covered. It's like I love all of them. So I just love that song and I love the different interpretations. But I don't want to end this segment without saying something about Ancient Door, a tribute to the music from the Elder.
Mm.
Just an incredible, incredible tribute to an underrated Kiss album, if I do say so.
Cool. Those are some great cover suggestions there, Pasquale. So I hope everyone goes out and kind of looks all these songs and versions that we mentioned. I hope people look them up and get more into Kiss, as if that's possible. So let's continue with the next question. So with regards to Bryan Adams' version of Rock and Roll Hell, Bryan Adams, internationally known Canadian music icon. He can go anywhere in the world pretty much and you know, play an arena. That's how popular he is. But with regards to his version of Rock and Roll Hell, a song he co-wrote with Jim Valance and Gene Simmons,
Hmm.
what did you think of his version?
Okay, first of all, I love Bryan Adams. I love his music. I own
Mm.
several of his records.
Mm.
And I love songs like, Summer of '69, Run to You, typical Bryan Adams songs.
Mm.
So, and I know he co-wrote Rock and Roll Hell, but
Mm.
then when I heard he's going to actually cover it, I was hoping for a Bryan Adams feel to the song.
Mm.
And I just felt he tried to recreate the Kiss feel of that song. And in my opinion, I don't think that was very successful, number one. I found the song to move along slowly. I'm listening to the song and I'm thinking, okay, get on with it. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Mm.
It moves forward very, very slowly. And
Okay.
it doesn't lyrically, it doesn't sound like a typical song that Bryan Adams would sing.
Mm.
If you listen to the lyrics of Rock and Roll Hell, it's pretty dark,
Mm.
and that's not something
True.
that Bryan Adams would really sing about. But regardless of that, if he would have put his own spin to it, his own Bryan Adams style, I think maybe I would have enjoyed it better. Like when I mentioned the previous covers that I like, those songs just like hit me right away. It's like these are different. I
Hmm.
loved it. Bryan Adams song version of the song. I'm sorry, I just wasn't crazy about it. But having said that, because I'm a homer, I did order the 7-inch vinyl of Rock and Roll Hell and War Machine. I mean, I have to have it part of my collection.
There
You
you
know,
go.
yeah,
You gotta stay at 100%, man.
exactly,
There you go.
exactly.
So before I give my opinion, out of 10, what would you give this?
Ooh, mediocre 5.
5?
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So for me, I mean, I guess I don't own any Bryan Adams in my collection. I've known him since the '80s. I have actually seen him in concert once. I did enjoy the show; it was really good. But his music never spoke to me to the point where okay, I'm actually going to go and spend money and buy his records and this and that. But I completely respect what he does. And yes, there is, like you said, there is a stereotypical sound that Bryan Adams has and that people expect from Bryan Adams. So when I heard that he was doing this, actually my first reaction was, well, it's about time.
Mm,
I kind of always felt inside that this might be something that he might eventually do. It's like, okay, I got these two songs that I wrote with Kiss. They've been, performing them, well, War Machine anyways, consistently for decades. But maybe one day in my head I was like, maybe he'll do it, and suddenly it's like, whoa, look at this, he did it. So from my point of view, I kind of noticed the things that were a little different about his version compared to the Kiss version. First of all, I like his version. It's fine. I think I think it's very well recorded. I think he sings it. He sings it well, and I think it's a good addition to his recorded oeuvre, or his recorded canon of music. Um, some interesting things I noticed about his version of the song. The intro is slightly different than what the Kiss version is. Bryan Adams' version goes directly into the walking bass line and into the first verse. So that was one thing that I immediately noticed was different. There's also a line in the chorus that he changes. So in the Kiss version, Gene says, "I need to get away." Bryan is singing, "I don't want to stay." It's tomato,
Oh,
tomato. I
I
mean,
didn't
you're
even
saying the same
notice.
thing. You're saying the same thing. The main thing that is different from Bryan Adams' version to Kiss's version is that the third verse isn't there. So we're used to having three verses in the Kiss version of Rock and Roll Hell. So verse, chorus, solo, verse, chorus to the end of the song. In Bryan Adams' version, is only the first two verses. So the third verse that we're used to is not there. So that was the most jarring moment for me when they went right after the solo. They went right back into the chorus, and then right to the end of the song, which makes me think that because I've read a few places where the song was brought to Kiss, you know, written by Adams and Jim Valance, and then Gene got a songwriting credit on it by adding a verse. Well, my guess
Hmm.
is that third verse is Gene's verse. And so again, hopefully Bryan Adams does some interviews and talks about this. He's not the most interview friendly guy over the years, but it would be good to know, is this the original way the song was written and brought to Kiss? That's my sense, because you know Gene did add a verse to the song. So my guess is it was that third verse that he added to the song. And for me, it's that third verse that kind of still keeps the Kiss version as the better version for me. I like this one. It's enjoyable. I'd give it, probably, you gave it a 5. I'll give it maybe a 7, 7.5 on 10, you
Okay.
know? But is the Kiss version better? Yes. It's got more punch to it. It has more has more verses. And perhaps there's a bit of bias also, because this is the version that I've lived with for a number of decades. Same as you. So now all of a sudden we have this new version, and it's like, well, okay, well, don't take room away from what I like, kind of thing. But no, it's good, and like I said, I'm glad he did it. It seemed like, to me, it always seemed like something that he could do or should do, and sure enough, here it is, kind of thing. I can easily see this fitting on. I mean, you were saying how this doesn't really sound like a Bryan Adams song, or a song that he would write. I
Hmm.
can, I have to disagree with you a little bit. I mean, I can easily see this fitting on Reckless, or maybe even Into the Fire,
Hmm.
uh, subject matter wise. Especially Into the Fire, which was more of a serious kind of album, topic wise. So this could easily, I could see it fitting on that album. Had he ever decided to record his own version in the 80s, you know, that might have been the best album to put it on, and it would have cohesively fit. So anyways, that's my opinion on it. Good on him for doing it. Good version. Doesn't replace the Kiss version in any way, shape, or form. I don't
Hmm.
think it's better than the Kiss version in any way, shape, or form. But I'm glad that it's out there. And hey, there's probably Bryan Adams fans out there listening to it now, or listening to it and suddenly realizing, hey, Bryan Adams wrote for Kiss. Oh my goodness. Maybe I should go listen to Kiss. And suddenly now Kiss has new fans. It's possible. So yeah.
Two interesting points there. Number one, I love your
Mm,
verse theory. That's why maybe
yeah.
Bryan Adams took
Mm,
it out. That was interesting. I never thought of that. And number two, you made me think of something. Might not be a popular opinion, but you mentioned Bryan
go,
Adams
go,
fans, and
go for it. Go for it.
go.
Unpopular opinion. Go for it.
Okay, so you said Bryan Adams fans, if when they heard or when they
Yeah.
hear this song,
Mm,
they didn't know that Kiss did it. Now, what if they didn't know this was a Kiss song and it was just a Bryan Adams song?
mm-hmm.
If I put myself as a Bryan Adams fan, I would see this as a throwaway song
Mm.
because it's not
Interesting.
again a typical Bryan Adams song, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's just my feeling about it. Now, which version do I like better? Obviously, the Kiss version. I've been listening to
Mm-hmm.
that version, forever now, and it's difficult to separate any other version
Mm-hmm.
besides the Kiss version, obviously. But I think again, if he did a completely different version, maybe a harder edge version or something more Bryan Adams type version,
Mm-hmm.
I might have not liked it more, but than the Kiss version, but liked it more as a Bryan Adams song. But no
Right.
matter, I think, what he does to it, I can't say that I would like it more than the Kiss song, you
Yeah,
know, or
I think we're kind of stuck in
yeah,
let's maybe that's not the best way to put it, but like I said, I've been a Kiss fan since the early 90s. So for me, I've had this song in my repertoire for, same thing with War Machine that's coming up at the end of the month. I've had these songs in my brain for the past 30 years, So and or I've had these Kiss versions of these songs in my brain for the past 30 years. Now all of a sudden here's someone else coming along and doing it. So the tendency or the bias may naturally be to kind of protect what you love kind of thing. So you know so
that's
that's
ex
that yeah, so it's so yeah, that's basically it. But like I said, good on him for doing it, I think. And I'll say this, and I was going to bring this up with the next question, but or maybe I'll ask the question now. With regards to him doing War Machine, do you think that he'll be able to pull that off? Do you think he'll be able? I mean, we know your opinion on Rock and Roll Hell. Well, what do you think he might be able to do or do with War Machine? You know,
Honestly, I'm looking forward to hearing this one because I'm curious to see what he's going to do with it.
right?
Because even more so than Rock and Roll Hell, this is definitely not a typical Bryan Adams song. And I
Yeah.
could just see him doing this song again, really slow and not
Mm.
giving it a faster, upbeat pace that's more his style. I don't know. I'm just thinking that it's not going to work. I just can't imagine him doing this song. I
Mm.
could see this song being done by Pantera, Anthrax, these hard rock, your metal bands.
Mm.
That's where that song belongs. But
Yeah.
Bryan Adams, his pop style, no, no. But again, if he puts his own spin, his own Bryan Adams spin to it, I think I'll enjoy it. It'll never be as good as the Kiss version,
Hmm.
but I think there's a lot other artists or musicians that have a harder rock edge to them that could do a better job with this song. But I haven't heard it yet, so we shall see.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, here here's what I think. In my opinion, Rock and Roll Hell sounds closer to a Bryan Adams song than War Machine does,
Yes.
which is why I said earlier that force I could envision, if we go back to the 80s, time machine, here we go. If we could go back to the 80s and Bryan Adams released Into the Fire and Rock and Roll Hell was on Into the Fire, I could see it fitting,
Mm,
because subject matter wise, theme wise, mood wise, it fits. I struggle to think of a Bryan Adams album where a song like War Machine would fit.
right.
Now he wrote this song, right? He co-wrote this song with his songwriting partner Jim Valance. So somewhere in him or them, this song came out, right? But sometimes, artists write songs for other people, or they write in a style of another artist as an exercise. I mean, Paul Stanley's admitted to doing this with Hard Luck Woman. He wrote
Hmm.
that as a sort of a Rod Stewart song. you know Even I Was Made for Loving You was written as a practice in writing a disco song. So this is not an unusual practice. If anyone in the Kiss world thinks it is, well, guess what?
Yeah.
There are some examples. But like I said before, Rock and Roll Hell to me sounds like something that Bryan Adams could have put on one of his albums,
Hmm.
uh Reckless or Into the Fire. Am I curious to hear what War Machine's going to sound like? Oh, you better believe it. I'm more
Yeah.
curious to hear what this sounds like than what Rock and Roll Hell sounds like. I mean, if we do this again at the end of August or beginning of September, uh, that'll be an interesting discussion.
Hmm.
I'm really interested to hear what that sounds like. If he keeps the same approach as he did for Rock and Roll Hell, I'll probably the same result. I'll probably give it a 7 or a 7.5. And it's like, okay, good on you. You covered that song, you wrote it, and now you're sort of taking it back. You know,
Right.
saying kind of same as with Rock and Roll Hell. Uh, but will it replace the Kiss version? I mean, come on. I think we all know I think we all know the answer to that, right? After multiple times hearing it live and numerous versions I have in my collection. I mean, you know the song the song is a Kiss song, and like you said, that is more of a heavy metal song. So a band like a Pantera, or a band like, or anybody else, Black Label Society, whoever. I don't think
Mm,
they've covered it, but I'm just giving as an example. It would fit that kind of band better, than it would a Bryan Adams. But as you said, if he put his own spin on it and did something a little different with it, hey, that you know a seven could become an eight.
yeah.
You never know. But yeah, I'm like I said, I'm more interested to hear what he does with War Machine going
No, very,
forward.
very similar to what Garth Brooks did with Hard Luck Woman.
Hmm.
His own
Yep.
spin to it. It sounded like a country song.
Hmm.
And this is why I loved his version of it, because it was different from the Kiss version,
Hmm.
you
Yep.
know? And if Bryan Adams could pull that off, yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be interesting. So, Mike, thank you very much for doing this, and looking forward to discussing War Machine. Like you said,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
should be interesting.
Yep, that can be a short kiss as well, for sure, and hopefully other subjects and going forward. And once again, Claudio, thank you for being on vacation, because it's always nice to talk with Pasquale and everyone else on the panel. So, but yeah, and if you're watching this video, please put in, tell us in the comments, what do you think of Rock and Roll Hell? What's your opinion? How would you rate it out of 10? Do you think this was a good choice by Bryan Adams to do, or not a good choice? Do you think it fits his overall catalog, or it doesn't? Let us know.
Perfect. Let's talk soon, Kiss Army.